Hello there, and welcome to the Second Life Book Club. My name is Draxtor Dupre. Today on the show, Céline Keller, finally a German guest. Céline is a climate justice activist and an incredible artist. Her new graphic novel is called Who is Afraid of Degrowth? It just came out yesterday. She had a crowdfunding campaign for a physical book. I think you completed in under 10 hours. Absolutely incredible, incredible work. 170 pages, including detailed sources. Celine is basically putting together really bad actors and really, really good people and is quoting them in this graphic novel, um, and thereby debunks degrowth myths. It's very inspiring stuff, like I said, from great people. Half of them I didn't know, but also horrible quotes from insane people in very powerful positions where you go like, okay, if they do this in their mom's basement, that's fine, but they're not in their mom's basement. They have hundreds of millions of dollars and influence policy and politics. So a lot of the usual suspects you can see on this cover here, but also a lot of people that I was not aware of. Welcome, Celine Keller. How are you?
Hello, I'm happy to be here. It's a really new experience to give an interview and to be in Second Life.
It's a little bit almost like the dematerialization that this crazy dude McAfee, that I didn't even know, we'll talk about him in a little bit. Everything is dematerialized, Celine. Everything is virtual. Isn't that the solution to the climate crisis?
Well, not really. But I think it's great to have virtual spaces to
Yeah.
talk.
I mean, I want to start with this quote here, and you're quoting someone, and I don't know if you identify the quote, and I couldn't figure this out. But you say in the forward of the book, you say, if facts will not do, we need better stories. And it's just so brilliant how you put this together in that story format. Because the facts are all out there in terms of what causes the climate crisis, the solutions are out there, and people still um, ignored, and these powerful people still make up crap that is just garbage and just benefits themselves. So let's start with this McAfee guy. Let's see, where do I have him? There we go. So this guy is from MIT, and he says the phenomenon is known as dematerialization. It is bringing us into what I call a second enlightenment, a literal one. So what is this guy talking about? This is what I think people refer to as tech solutionism, I guess. And what's so crazy here, he talks about something that I thought is uh, out of fashion. He says self-interest, this profit motive, this greed. We actually want this in our society. It's a really, really important force. Competition, which is an important aspect of capitalism, and really, really powerful digital technologies that I think has started to allow us to get more from less. Anyway, just a little teaser for what's in store with your book. But Celine, my first concrete question to you, what would you say is the biggest myth about degrowth that is going around in people's heads?
Oh, I think there are quite a few. And I don't know if they are really in their heads, but they get like repeated all the time
What
from.
gets what gets repeated to you? I'll tell you what gets repeated to me. It is, oh, if you advocate for degrowth, you basically want poor people to stay poor. There are a lot of people, they don't even have
Yes.
housing, people don't have clean water, and you're sitting in your apartment and you're talking about degrowth. You don't want these poor people to get up to your level of luxury. I hear this all the time.
Yes, that's a very Yeah, people talk about that a lot, and it's simply not true. I wish I had like the book right next to me right now, because there are like, if you read, for example, Jason Hickel, and he wrote a lot of, not only the books, but he wrote a lot of articles about exactly that myth. And I think just a couple days ago there was a Oxfam report,
Yes.
and he tweeted out like something, how many 100 years it would take to get people out of extreme poverty if we go the way we are going right now. So they're actually trying to, I don't know, like also this McAfee guy, they're like, for me, it looks very desperate, but people are like, grow up in this myth is not only about degrowth, that we need capitalism, we need competition, we need profit making for innovation, for everything. And meanwhile, we're surrounded by mountains of
Garbage.
shit.
Yeah.
Yes, of garbage, and people are still not having like the basic needs covered, and everybody is actually getting much poorer, and like the gap between the super rich and the super poor is getting ever more large.
And
So
I put
yeah.
this up here in the back because, and this is what I want to start with, and we're also ending with, because you write that degrowth is stands for care, autonomy, and sufficiency, and the myth that degrowth is something that um, just prohibits poor people to catch up to the global north is such baloney. There is one. I read the book on my ebook reader while I was walking. So here's an image. While I was reading here, you can see the dog in the background. And there's this other crazy guy,
Yes.
Tom Chivers, who basically says, wait a minute, he said, what does he say? Two things first. Economic growth saves children's lives. That is one of the most basic facts about the modern world. Second, there's a thing called the degrowth movement. So he's asked about this. This is his response, which wants to stop economic growth. And yes, this would lead almost inevitably to the unnecessary deaths of thousands of children a day. And then your friend Julia Steinberg, an amazing, inspiring economist, is debunking this. But this guy Tom Chivers, I mean, that's absolutely insane. And when you contrast this, these people seem to always then portray themselves as helping poor people, right? I mean, this is the starkest, I think, example that, oh, if you advocate for stopping this growth, you will kill children.
Kill children. Yes. He's incredible, and I think I checked up on him like just a couple of weeks ago, because he appeared somewhere, and he's now actually also like, if I remember well, pushing, like the long termists. But I saw him first when he attacked Extinction Rebellion, and he did that, and I think I linked it in the sources, that article about killing children, and it was also about like the climate movement at that moment.
Hmm.
He's really really
This is a
mean.
writer. This is a well-known writer. I had never heard of him. He writes for The Guardian and CNN and everything. And you know what, Celine? In a minute, we're gonna actually walk up to the gallery because we have a gallery, and then we can look at actual panels. You chose a bunch of panels, and then we can talk specifically about what's happening on them. But before we do that, contrasting to this guy Tom Chivers, and many others of these of writers and mouthpieces, but also these powerful people like Musk, etc., who say with their economic growth everybody will be helped. Here is Rosario Guzman, and this is a fantastic quote where she says, "Growth is a painful word for the people of the global south, the poor people, right, that these developed countries pretend to help." And she says the reality of growth from the perspective of the global south is that it can be achieved simply by being open and attractive to foreign capital. The reality of growth from the perspective of the global south is that it can be achieved by increasing debt. The reality of growth is that the global south is relegated to being an exporter of cheap raw materials and labor. I mean, this should be so obvious to people, and of course, people know that I'm a big fan of Karl, the original, Karl Marx. And when you read the original work and the analysis of capitalism, it's all about extraction. Um, so pitching to to people in the global south that we're helping them is absurd.
Yeah, it's like she says, painful, and and for me, what I struggle most with is that this lie is like repeated in the media all the time, even though everybody actually kind of knows what's going on, and
Yeah.
that our wealth is based on extraction, and these people never get richer or have their needs met, and there's child work and all these horrible things, and still this gets repeated all the time, and people really cling to it. And I think it's because the other side of it is that our wealth, and it isn't really wealth because loads of us aren't really rich and have problems and everything's getting worse.
But the strawberries are
Depends.
cheap and you can buy them
Oh,
around here.
yes,
I know where
yes.
you're going. I mean, this is why people can't admit that. I think I mean, we're talking about people who know better, and I'm sorry to jump in here, but I want to make sure that people understand when we're talking about this. And Celine, you're very good about in your other work as well of pointing out the structural issues, because uh, one easy thing, of course, is to blame the individual and individual consumption patterns, and there is a connection there. But to blame
Yes,
people who are themselves struggling, um, and we talked about this I talked about this with Shyla about plastics, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, this is a systemic issue of exploitation, and individuals have agency, but unless there is structural change here,
yes,
so yeah.
yes. You can't really, or you can say like they're trying to pitch the poor against the even poorer,
Yeah.
because yeah, I mean that's with the climate crisis, that's everywhere. Today I had somebody on Twitter who wanted to talk about status anxiety of man, and that degrowth can't tackle that.
What?
And it's like, yeah, it was kind of funny
That is so
because,
that's the biggest problem that oh my God,
yeah,
if you don't allow young men to buy
and old
big
man.
and old men exactly cars, convert like I don't know, like a Bugatti, then you will create men with status anxiety, and they will turn into incels that then go into and shoot up people. Do you
Yeah,
want
so you
that?
better stay with your capitalism and make it even worse. I don't know. It's crazy, but it's all going in that direction. It's like insisting that the problems that we have can't be solved except through more growth. which isn't helping.
So I actually did not know, and we're going to go to the gallery in a second, but I want to ask one more question because for me, it was new that degrowth is such a controversial topic on the left for some of the reasons or for this main myth that we kind of hinted at. It's that it's basically depriving already poor people of the living standards that we have. And I don't know, I think isn't it total common sense to decouple these two things? It's so straightforward and common sense for me to say, yeah, of course we can restrict ridiculous stuff that kills the planet, and at the same time lift the living standards of the poorest of the poor. You can totally do these two things at the same time. It's completely bizarre to say that, I don't know, we need nuclear power uh, so that people, because sometimes that's also intertwined, Celine, right? I mean, there's a lot of people who feel we need nuclear power as well. But anyway, um, I don't know if there's a
Yes,
question in there. I mean, you addressed it. This is the main myth. The main myth, I think, uh, is that we're going backwards, and not only are we losing our living standards, but we're also depriving all the other people that don't even have it.
I think there's also like loads of dishonesty in it, and a big part is a weird, I would say, kind of childish sci-fi dreams of abundance, and that abundance
Yeah.
gets linked to consumerism. So they want, like, like from Star Trek, like the replicator, how it was called, and everybody, or let's say,
But the replicator
we
was a good thing because it literally gave everybody everything in the scenario that these tech bros then conjure up. It's usually that they make shitloads of money. So that's
yes, yes, yes,
right. So they
yes,
go,
but the
Star Trek
idea,
is really cool, but where's the money? I need the money.
yes, and I think it links back to that status anxiety, because the idea is about hierarchies. It's not like the dream is about abundance for all, but what it's really about is to keep up having people who deserve to have more
Yep. And you
and
point
not
that out,
share.
so well. You put all these connections together because most of the players that are against degrowth as a concept or even something to discuss also are very much into eugenics or whatever you called it. I mean, some people call it, you mentioned long termism, and it's sometimes also called effective altruism. And these people, I mean, would you say they're all into this stuff? I mean, there's obviously variance, but maybe we should define what long termism is. Can you kind of define this?
I think it's bit difficult, and I would rather have you read the free graphic novel and check on Emil to do that. But actually, the thing is that I don't think that all of these people are aware what kind of racist shit they are promoting. Like loads of people in the effective altruism movement really want to do good, but they are not aware about privilege, and they are not aware about like this white savior syndrome, or because that's a status too, to help others and tell them what's best. And so long-termism, loads of the effective altruism people say long-termism as something fringe that overtook the movement. But
Ah,
if you read the comic and see about, for example, the guy you mentioned earlier, Peter Singer, who is one of the founders of it, or think about Bill Gates, who actually inspired the movement with his giving pledge,
and
and
this guy
who is
William
also,
McCaskill too. I didn't know this guy. He's also
yes, and
one.
they are very, very close. Like this work together, and I think from the beginning, like this racist hierarchy stuff was in there, like quite obviously, if you follow back from where it's coming. But I don't think people, like the normal people in the movement, are really aware of it when they start to get in, because there is this utopian or this tech utopianism, which I understand that people fall for it in the beginning. I remember when I started to be on the internet, I was also really inspired by free education and all these things that sounded so good and turned out to be really terrible. And
It
so
was.
I do I do understand why people get in there, and then it's really hard to get off when you have this self-image of yourself of doing good.
Right.
So it's a really, really, really hard knot that ties them up in that. And if you go and if you read about it, like the people who lead it, or like this William McAskill, it really gets super cultish. It gets into a cult, really. For
This is
me,
how
it
it
is.
yeah, and I always understood it. Let me just say that this whole internet thing, I felt exactly like you, Celine, and then I became a Marxist, and I realized a real one, not a fake one. And we'll talk about Caleb Maupin a little later, because I think when you realize the profit incentive, and you realize who owns the technology, then it all totally makes sense. I mean, that's what the Luddites were not against technology. They destroyed their machines because the machines were owned by capital and exploited them. So this guy William McCaskill, I just have to slide up, and Emilia Torres, you quote her saying, Emil, him or they,
Okay.
they they say long-termism is not about long-term thinking, but a quasi-religious worldview influenced by transhumanism and utilitarian ethics, which asserts that there could be so many digital people living in vast computer simulations. I mean, I met a lot of people actually when I was living Silicon Valley adjacent. They live in computer simulations millions or billions of years in the future, that one of our most important moral obligations, here comes today, is to take actions that ensure as many of these digital people to come into existence. So this long-termist view, this is just one, but basically, and I said this pre-show, my understanding of long-termism is that because they have these long-term goals, means that you can basically kill off by accident or on purpose about a quarter of the entire population,
And nothing, yeah.
right? Because they really don't mean anything when compared to this long-term goal. Uh,
There's also like
yeah.
another aspect that's really important, and that's also ties into the racist stuff. It's like if you go into this effective altruism movement, they are linked to these IQ fans.
Ah,
And so when you actually read their papers, and like they like to be like super intellectual and rational. It comes from this rationalist movement, and it's it's absolutely mind blowing to actually read it, because it's really, really mind bendingly stupid stuff that sounds like super intellectual, whatever. And the people try to
techies, all these
I don't
things.
know.
We should have never let these techies do this kind of stuff. I don't see why.
it's really. I read their stuff, and it sounds so difficult. But if you really waste your energy on it, you come out of it and think, why and what the hell? And I think it's actually working like cults do. It's like gurus and people you look up to, and you try to get their attention or move up to the upper group, and so they are all.
But they're all. I mean, they all believe that they can innovate their way out of all these
Yes,
problems. And what you're saying is so important, it bears repeating, is that the hierarchical thinking unites all of them. None of these people in their worldview is no place for something that is completely important to me personally, which is that every human being has the right to live a decent life. They start from the point that that life has different value, and some get very extreme. Um, as you're talking
yes,
about this, I want to throw this here up. This is Silvia Federici. She says, and we're putting everything sort of out of sequence here. Capitalism will always be racist and sexist. Why? Because it needs to denigrate the nature of those it exploits, colonial subjects, women, and the dispossessed. So that is pure logic right there. So when you exploit something for the value that it brings, you have to create hierarchies. There's no you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's impossible. Yeah.
yes. I think it's a bit like the excuse for all we're doing. Like they built like a incredibly convoluted excuse for
Yes.
the terrible things we are doing,
They
and
create a
try to
convol
convince
yes.
themselves convince themselves that it's right and absolutely okay to do that because we need that for innovation, and because it's just how it has to be. It's human nature. That's another aspect of it. They pretend is true, and yes, but for me that's basically it. It's a desperate, always getting more desperate way of trying to excuse what we're doing to each other.
Yeah. Shaila, I think you
I,
wanted to ask a question.
well, yeah, I kind of have a question, but it was put in chat. Like, is the opposite of is degrowth mean recession, which I read in your book is one of the myths, and
That's
I'm
a great
wondering
point.
if you can talk about it a little bit more.
That's right at the top, but that's brilliant. Let's Celine tackle that one because you have this example where I forgot who it was, but they basically say, yeah, the degrowth people, we had that, we saw it with COVID, man. That's what they want. And why is degrowth not recession?
Well, recession is like the economy crashing and how do you say that in English? Like getting smaller chaotically because of outside reasons, and degrowth is actually the transition, like the planned transition
Hmm.
to a post-growth future. So we are trying, or degrowth tries to change the system and turn the economy into something that like makes possible that everybody's needs is fulfilled and everybody has a decent life. And
Hmm.
that's not something that happens because of COVID or whatever. You have to
Yeah.
do it together. People have to do it together, and it's something that has to happen democratically, and it has absolutely nothing to do with a recession. But I think I want to check. I think
This
I
is actually
did
this is
in
in the
the
gallery. This is the right at the beginning. We can go up in the gallery and look at it. No, but that's a great
yes,
explanation because the main difference really is a chaos, an outside force, right? In this instant, COVID or some other supply chain thing, doesn't have to be a global virus,
yes,
something that impacts a sector of the economy and causes problems versus a very, very targeted decision-making process of what to produce and
exactly,
and
yes.
for whom. And now we're going to go to the gallery, but I have to do one more thing. This is Jamie Tyberg, also in the novel. We touched on it, but she says, you quote her in the novel, I want to resituate degrowth as a tactic within the larger strategy of decolonization. Again, this ties in what we said earlier. Um, the global south doesn't see it. Hey, these guys are not really doing anything. All they do is to offer us capital so they can exploit us, and then they go once we're exploited. And Jamie Tyberg goes on saying, looking at degrowth not as the end goal, but the means how we get to our end goal, which is a decolonized world and abolition of colonialism, of prisons, and capitalism. The same way as I would think of divestment as a tactic for the larger strategy of abolition. Degrowth is the unlearning formula consisting of care, autonomy, and sufficiency. I read this earlier. One that is essential for understanding that the end goal for degrowthers isn't degrowth, it's deco- uh, it decolonization is. Again, non-hierarchical, really helping people and not enriching the tech bros.
Yes.
Enough about
Okay.
those poor tech bros. Let's go, my tech bro friends. Follow me as we walk up to the
Okay.
gallery. Stand up.
I'm trying to do
Our guest is not able, she's going to be stuck there.
it.
She's going to degrow.
I'm gonna try. I'm not very good at walking.
Neither am I, obviously. So, one of the interesting things also, you quote kind
Oh,
of in the beginning this guy, Aaron Bastani, who thought, like, hey, this is kind of a decent guy. He's the co
yeah.
founder of Novara Media, which is a progressive YouTube channel, media enterprise. And Aaron Bastani is very famous in left circles. He wrote a book called uh, Fully Automated Luxury Communism that people really loved. And there's people that I know that love this book. And in Fully Automated Luxury Communism, Aaron Bastani basically says, all this stuff is possible, and we can have our cake and eat it too. And you have him in the book with a tweet, and every one of us tweets stupid things. But he tweeted he is a big fan of capitalism between 1800 and 1980. Now, I have seen stupid tweets because occasionally I look at what Elon tweets, but that is freaking stupid. And when you read Marx Capital and you read just his accounts of industrial England with child labor of 12 to
Yeah.
14 hours, and you are an author of a book that purports to be you're an expert on communism and Marx, and you say you're a fan of capitalism 1800 to 1980. I guess his point was then with the Reagan Revolution, it somehow went bad. That is really dumb, Celine, is it not?
Oh, it's terrible. And I think again we are back to that abundance problem that makes people again excuse like really stupid
They
stuff and
just don't
really
want to give
cruel
up
stuff.
anything.
Yes, and it's
The
like
rich.
not giving up, like holding on to your privilege and say like, oh no, I want more, 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 and so everybody somehow has to have more, so I can keep on living like I do,
Mm.
which is actually exploiting like the whole global south and producing loads of garbage. And I think it comes also from that science fiction actually isn't a very liberatory literature traditionally, let's say.
Celine, we will have to have a separate conversation. No, I know what you're trying to say, but I would say that it depends
Yeah, yeah,
how you
I
read it.
know.
No,
I
we actually
Yeah.
had a guest here who was I keep cutting you off. Make your point. I'm sorry.
No, I think it is because it helps you imagine different things and different worlds, and it can be, but I think loads of it is actually not, and traditionally is not, has a lot to do with colonization and just like thinking about these things with um, like putting them on the stars and giving them weird skin colors and saying they're aliens, but it's actually about things that are happening.
I agree when you're talking about the golden age of sci-fi, what is referred to as golden age of sci-fi, Asimov, Heinlein, that stuff. I cannot read that stuff to be honest, and I know I'm gonna make some enemies among the crowd here. But yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And but I actually think that what is worse, what is really dangerous with sci-fi is what can be a problem is two
Yes,
things.
indeed.
One is that the tech bros um, read sci-fi and read it as an instructional manual um, when they identify with the baddies pretty much or with the people who own the technology. Um,
Yes,
po-
I think they think so much about cool stuff. It's why you get
yes,
like every
absolutely.
Black Mirror episode, you get like half a year later, you get a startup trying to do it. It's like,
Palmer Luckey, the founder of the Oculus Rift and who now has a drone company that makes software and hardware to kill people, read Ready Player One and thought that that
right.
was the greatest thing on earth, and everybody was like, "Wait a minute, it's probably not that great that everybody is poor and only can live decently with a headset on." He goes like, "No, that's awesome because I'm gonna
Yeah.
make those headsets."
Yes.
I, if I
Silent?
could interrupt, because we talk about the privilege, which we should probably define a little bit, but I think there's a deep desire, at least in the United States, uh, to not lose ground. And there's a feeling about degrowth that is losing ground.
Yeah.
And I wonder, because when my dad graduated college, he was able to buy a house his first year, a car, have a child, then have another child in a year. That was me. And I, that can't happen today. Like it
Yeah.
has gotten a lot worse. And I wonder if this plays into that idea of, well, heaven forbid it should get even worse, which is not what I read in your book. Like this is the kind of ends up being the opposite of worse. Yes.
Yes, it's actually degrowth is actually about making life possible and good, about healthcare, about everybody having a roof over their head, about sharing resources, and about living well so everybody else can live well too. And yes, it's super weird that while people like have to be afraid because they lose all these things. They don't have houses anymore. They can't pay for university and school, and they don't have health care. Things are getting worse. That actually in the media and everywhere, degrowth is so vilified because and the solution they are giving is just more of the same, which is actually creating all these problems and telling the people fear it, fear it, fear it. Or like one of the bad racist guys, the how is he called? The guy from the grievance studies. Um, he's like tweeting out like the last, I think, 3 months, almost every day, degrowth is a death cult. James, Oh no, I forgot the name. I'll look it up
Doesn't
later. But
matter. I
one
don't
of
know
the
either. You throw so many. I mean, it's like this. This book is freaking dense in the and I mean this as a huge compliment. I mean, it really. Anyway, the but what we're talking about, Shala, and thank you for this comment because
I
uh,
thank you.
it's about. I guess it's pretty clear that again, it's about who is benefiting, and degrowth is a concept or puts forth concepts that benefit everyone to have a decent life, and people who hate it are people who are afraid of losing their privilege. And I don't want to say any negative things about your dad, um, because your dad and my dad are very similar in the sense that they feel you can't get anything for free. You have to work hard. And that is also something I think that throws people off when you say, well, how about people who, do you have to work hard for clean water, for the right to have clean water, for example? Um, and Celine, you put in, where is my slide? I want to look for this one here. Talking about needs and sort of the basic human needs. This is a slide from that quotes Manfred Max Neff, and he talks about. I'm going to just read this. 3 decades ago, the late Chilean economist and Right Livelihood Award winner Manfred Max Neff argued that the basic needs of human beings go deeper than the lists of goods and services that usually comes to mind. So you sent this to your dad, Shyla, and I will do it to mine when they talk about I was able to buy a house. Manfred
Right.
identified 9 underlying universal needs, among them subsistence, protection, participation, creation, and freedom. Our need for subsistence, the means of sustaining life, must of course be satisfied before the other needs can be met. That's why lists of basic requirements always include food, shelter, healthcare, etc. What Mexneff termed satisfiers of needs. The needs are the same among humans everywhere. The satisfiers vary and shift over time and from place to place, but each society's goal, he wrote, must be universal satisfaction of our fundamental needs. And here's the thing: universal satisfaction, meaning absolutely everyone, not just, I don't know, the elite and the middle class that works hard. Based on what we now know in 2021, we should add that those needs must be satisfied without violating the Earth's ecological limits, right?
Yes, I think the one of it's again like pitching people against each other, because like this idea that you have to fight for something, or I mean, I'm German and I think it's very German to somehow believe we deserve what we have, and we worked hard, and people have these weird
Prejudice,
prejudices
yeah.
against like this is always the flip side of the coin, that actually in the global south, or in the global south in Europe, they're not working as hard as we do, or they have more corruption, which is really funny.
That is,
But
yeah.
but I think that's part of it, that that you get, instead of your needs fulfilled, they give you this idea, like privilege is not only that you have more, but that they make you believe you're better, even though you probably don't have more. You don't have to have more to feel that way. If like the society makes you feel that way, or like with the left movement we talked before too, where they always say, "Oh yeah, it's about class struggle and the poor male workers who did so much for our society," or the status anxiety. It's it's um, it's a self-image that puts you higher than other people, even though it doesn't help you in your situation, but it helps to keep you in your place and the others who are exploited even worse than you too.
It's interesting that the climate movement, and there's a huge difference between fighting climate crises and fighting for climate justice, which is a very big theme of your book. Let's go up to the gallery. And Shyla, does your dad? I don't know. Did you say that your dad says why is it not is your dad like wondering why it isn't possible today to get a house and and provide for your family? Does he say that's because people are lazy, or is he that explicit?
He felt for a lot of years that if a graduate from college stayed home, lived at home, that they weren't trying. Now he's reassessed that position, and he
That's
feels
good.
now it is really more difficult to do that. But
Hmm.
no, initially, there wasn't really an awareness, is what I would say it was.
And when you tell him that the wages are stagnant since the 70s and the cost of living is exploding, what does he say?
Um,
Then you have to work
I,
harder.
I think he would point to government as the cause
Ah, okay, sure.
of
My
that.
my dad would probably say, well, then you didn't negotiate well if you're not getting paid well. And I say, oh, that's interesting. I never thought of it that way. Is it an equal position if I'm trying to get a job and somebody is here to anyway? l- let's go over here. Here is the beginning. Actually, we already talked about this. Come here, folks. This is how it all starts. And Celine with her own 172 super complex novel. I don't I wouldn't blame Celine in the slightest if she didn't know what happened on page 5. I mean, this is really amazing. But this is how the whole thing starts, and um, here it starts with the thing that COVID uh, shows us, or that the recession that happened during COVID is the trial run for degrowth. Oh my God, the horror show.
Well, it actually was like, in a way, like loads of people in the degrowth movement made like a great argument about that it's actually possible, or it was like not the recession, but the possibility that so many things stopped. And in the beginning, for example, in Germany, there was help for people, not for the essential workers, really, as they were called, but it showed that it's possible to reduce emissions
Yeah,
and
that's the
that
lesson that
it,
I got from COVID, that wow,
yes,
we can completely bring down carbon emissions. It's amazing. And no,
yes, and
nobody
it
has
doesn't.
everybody forgot that. Everybody just, oh my God, toilet paper. Do you remember we didn't have toilet paper?
Got toilet
Jesus
paper,
Christ.
yes. That was big in Germany.
Okay, but Celine, but then what would you say to people when somebody points out that wow, this is really cool, we lost all these emissions, then somebody says, ah, Celine, you're such a naive dreamer, wherever you live there in the woods with your dogs. Uh, we need traffic. We need to get goods to the people. Celine, you degrowth people say that you want to help the people and bring the goods to them.
Yes, I mean,
How
it's
do you do
about,
that? Telepathically?
No, but it's about restructuring the economy to actually produce what people need and want. And that has to be not decided from top down, but from bottom up. People need to have the possibility in their communities to decide together what they really need and how, like you said before, with the with the universal needs fulfillment. Like we don't, like, people, yes, need an income, but do they really need it? Packing packages in a horror Amazon center where they just chip around shit that everybody throws away again. Oh, I lost you somehow. Am I still with you?
Yeah.
Ah,
You are
yes.
here. You're right
Okay.
here. Uh, yeah, and you know what? As you're talking, let me see where this is because Julia Steinberger, who's the half sister of Ned Steinberger, and I own a Ned Steinberger made guitar that is handmade by him, but it's completely off topic. But Julia
Oh,
Steinberger, let me get this quote from her and her colleague Narashima Di Rao. Here we go. It's behind us. I put that up there. Um, they debunk this whole thing of living in a cave, the cliche um, that people may have about environmentalists and degrowth people. Julia says our current work offers a response to the cliched populist objection that environmentalists are proposing that we return to living in caves. With tongue firmly in cheek, the response roughly goes, yes, perhaps, but these caves have highly efficient facilities for cooking, storing food, and washing clothes. Low energy lighting throughout. 50 liters of clean water supplied per day per person with 15-liter heated to a comfortable bathing temperature. They maintain an air temperature of around 20 degrees Celsius throughout the year, irrespective of geography, have a computer with access to global ICT networks, are linked to extensive transport networks providing 5,000 to 15,000 kilometers of mobility per person each year via various modes, and are also served by substantially larger caves where universal healthcare is available, and so on. So
yes.
this is what Julia Steinberger, economist out of Switzerland, Narashima Derao say. Now, a critic would say, well, okay, but that also, I mean, did anybody make the calculation that this is better for the environment? These caves do look luxury. I mean, I could say like, what's the
Yes,
difference
they,
between these
she,
caves
she
and the bunkers that the preppers build? Like,
oh, they're really, really different. And for example, like Julia has some really fantastic papers that I still can't believe that, for example, in the media are never talked about. And I think 2 years ago they had one about decent living for all, that it would be possible with 50% less energy consumption around the world for everybody.
wow.
Like, just, yeah, if we would decide to restructure our societies that way and have food and healthcare and all of these things for everybody, so nobody would need to be in anxiety. I mean, there's also that the climate crisis is accelerating, and all of that, and the wars and all of this is not making it easier, but in theory, it's really possible. And there are papers about that. There's also one of her students who is now a doctor who wrote various papers about this, and they are advancing these studies also, like what actually needs to happen. And I really recommend, like, to look her up and the papers. they're also, I think, definitely linked in the back of my comic under the sources,
All
where
is
the
linked in the
sources are.
sources, and
Yes.
maybe Shala, you can quickly look up Julia Steinberger and put it in the link, put it in the local chat. Valencia said we would need a lot of vitamin D supplements in the caves. And Celine, again, I mean, absolutely.
But you don't have to be in the caves.
No, no, I'm joking. But the thing is, what is, if you just, if somebody would object to this and say, well, how is this possible? I had these conversations, and thankfully now I have the perfect example of a Hollywood celebrity flying from Van Nuys Airport to Burbank in a private jet, um, which is a 30-minute flight, is the equivalent. Now I don't have it in my head, but it's the equivalent of, I don't know, maybe 500 people, um, in a city, in Africa, doing normal things for a year.
There's also the American, how do you say it? What is Kühlschrank again?
Fridge,
A
refrigerator.
fridge, yes. And I have to look it up, but I send it to you, about the American fridge and how many people that would be the equivalent somewhere in Africa using the energy for a year.
I don't want to get
It's really,
sidetracked.
it's really,
Yeah,
yeah, it's just mind blowing to think about these things, how unfair it is, and how unnecessary, and how cruel it really is. These inequalities, and we could fix them and have not only the super rich live a good life, which is actually not a good life, but a insane life doing these flights while the world is burning.
it's all
And
about climate justice. And I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. I was just saying
no,
Valencia was saying who would want to fly from Van Nuys to Burbank. As someone who lived in LA for many years and actually worked as a driver in LA County, I would have, at the time when I was 25, was like, okay, it would be cool to actually fly because you're sitting in traffic. But anyway, let's focus on Celine. Well, because the point that you're making again, Celine, really the point here is justice. We're talking about justice. We're talking about the availability of these basic needs for everyone, and these rich people, and very often they're tech bros, and very often they have other very questionable ideologies. As you said earlier, Celine, they're concocting the justifications that are bizarre just to justify their own selfish, luxurious life, like a 12-year-old writing a paper why he wouldn't clean his room, um, when
but
his
you know
mother
what?
told him.
There's
Yeah.
there's there's something else. It's not only about justice per se. It's also that we don't have a fighting chance to for a future if we don't make this justice. It's like we need to do that. There is no way to deal with the climate crisis if we don't manage to have an equal world and
Yes.
live that way.
But
That's
the long termists, they say we can, and I don't want to go in a circle. I know that is bullshit. But okay, what what I could not believe in your book, that there is a website, and the website is pronatalist.org.
oh yeah.
And I grabbed a screen grab, and we see it here on the board here that is floating up here. These are the founders, Simone and Malcolm Collins. They're the scariest people I've seen in a while. They're the kids. I feel sorry for them. Now, what is? Can you define natalism?
This is really, I think, a bit too long of a topic, but basically it's a weird, it's actually linking to this racist great replacement
Yes.
conspiracy theory.
I'm putting you on the spot here. Let me define it real quick because the way I think it's very simple. It's basically this exactly the same thing. It's a racist hierarchical thinking
Yes.
of that I am or I have the power to determine who should procreate and who shouldn't, who brings value to this planet and who doesn't. And these techies, of course, then very often they have sort of schemes or testing things. So it's no different than good old eugenics um, in high tech, right? I mean, it's no different than measuring skull sizes or whatever. And these pronatalists, or these folks, or anybody who buys into this natalism thing, again has a very hierarchical understanding of human beings, and very often, not exclusively, it's of course goes without saying that they think people with disabilities don't bring a lot of value, right? So I don't know. I mean, it runs the gamut. There's a lot of gray in between. A lot of people would say if you can see that somebody's going to be disabled, these people should not be born. Then there's Peter Singer, a philosopher, highly regarded, who I think also says that there are reasons for legitimate reasons for killing
Yes.
people if they don't have value, including disabled people. So again, I don't want to say that each one of the anti degrowth capitalists have those belief systems, but there's a large overlap.
Yes, there is. And there's also, I think, why it's so, apart from the racist conspiracy theories, why it's so popular, um, in scare quotes right now, is also links to another myth about degrowth, like the Malthusian myth.
Ah, yeah.
So they turn that on the head, like it's actually not true. And there's a chapter in the book about it. But they, like Elon Musk, he's also like a pronatalist, and he's all the time like super worried that white people, the guys with the high IQs, are not getting enough babies. And how many does he already have now?
Oh wait,
I
here
think,
here is Elon Musk smoking weed on Joe Rogan. You draw him, it's
yeah,
perfect, unbelievable. Yeah, yeah. So he's he's spreading his seed wide. Um, but you're talking about Malthusian, and actually we prepared a slide here with Malthusian, and that was new to me. The only thing that I knew is that my friend Karl Marx was not a friend of Malthus. But what's the
yeah.
Malthusian thing here? This explain to us.
Actually, it's for me, it's a bit like everything hard to explain on the spot. But the idea is also that Malthus is quite complicated because there is the myth about him that is popular and who he actually is. Like Georges Callis wrote a book about him called Limits. And there was actually in the 70s like a movement of environmentalists that was racist and talked a lot about overpopulation. And Paul Ehrlich is the name you can think of. And there was a lot of racism behind it. I think he went with his wife to India and then wrote about all these many brown people and how they would, like how they are getting babies, and that's a problem. And it's, of course, not, because today it's not, it's still not that the poor people are the problem. The rich people are, no matter how few babies they have, they are using up all the energy and polluting the whole world, and it's not even comparable.
It's not comparable. But this
But
is, you're talking about Paul Ehrlich. Now, this is in the 70s, but we're talking about Malthus, who lived a century earlier. And my understanding is that
yes,
Malthus was said that poverty is inevitable. That's just that's like a
yes,
law of
yes,
physics, basically.
Yes, he was also a big human nature fan, but he was also like a priest, and he was, how do I say that? But I think I have like this little. There was this little. I can't find it.
We can
But he
leave Malthus alone.
basically he basically didn't have like a good picture of humans. He didn't like them very much, and so they needed to be punished and made to work, like basically all these things that still run under these other myths, like you have to work hard
Yeah.
and
This is the German philosophy, right? Oh, if the
yes, yeah, and
human
also
nature
like
is
in
that you're
the
lazy, so we need to put you to work.
yes, and you get like all, and he hated, like the sex stuff because poor people would get babies, and the most important thing is, oh, what is that you can't, like you said, like you there is no, like humans are basically bad, and you can't like human nature is bad and they need to be policed and yeah, made to work.
But
And
how does Malthus, this old guy, figure into what's happening today with degrowth? What happens? Why is his philosophy or his views? Um,
because these pro-naturalists, they say that degrowth is basically the same as the environmental movement from the 70s, and who want to, like the Tom Shivers guy who want to kill babies and not. It's like so much of the new right movement is doing, like turning stuff on their heads and accusing the people of the stuff you do.
mhm.
Like, so they are all in
Projection.
great replacement thing. So they want more white babies, which actually means we want less of the other babies. And then they turn it around and say like degrowth kind of wants, kill babies, or wants to starve the poor people. Meanwhile, they don't give a crap about poor people or brown people. They actually feel
Oh,
threatened.
I understand. Okay, so that's why they take Malthus and then say you're basically Malthusian.
Yes, that's
Okay.
that's why they actually love this guy, and they actually
No,
like these things. And there is a
I
history
see.
which is really complicated, and which you can read about it in there, because there's also like the part which is even older than like the 70s, which is about how do you say, contraceptives and Planned Parenthood, and these things, they all go together, and our history is super racist and super unsavory.
I
So there are these parts are in there too.
I just realized that Dex Euromat is already in the other room. Celine, sorry, I bumped into you.
Yeah.
Uh, what was I gonna say? Um, Now this Malthusian thing, now I understand it, but what is okay? I need to know, and I don't want to put you on the spot again, but can you explain what MAGA communism is? Because what is really cool about your book, I mean, you really connect the dots again. I said this before with with ideologies that are insane. And of course, MAGA communism, for the people who don't know what MAGA is, Make America Great Again, a slogan that was popularized by Donald Trump. And Trumpism is normally not really associated with collectivism like communism, but there is a movement out there, and I don't know, are these people just online too much, Celine? Are they? I mean, I'm an old guy now I'm talking like, oh my God, these kids are too online and smoking too much weed. Where does this stuff come from? What does MAGA communism?
I actually,
Explain it to an old guy.
it's really hard to explain because it doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
But for me, for me,
Then let's.
behind that, there's a lot of, or for me, it's connected to this LaRouche guy and the history
Ah,
again of, like fascism,
yeah.
which can eat everything up. It doesn't matter if it's left or right. And these guys who are in it,
That's
I,
actually, oh yeah. It's almost like when people say, well, National Socialism is socialism. The Nazis were actually
yeah.
good for the workers.
Oh, yeah, they were left wing.
Ah, so that's like an,
Whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's like I think some of them it's hard to say if, like with the effective altruism movement too, it's hard to say who is a bad actor, who is actually completely confused and full of themselves, who is just a grifter making money in a business with it, and who's just crazy. I don't know. But because humans have this special capacity for fooling themselves into some really terrible ideas and faith and how do you say, like beliefs. And MAGA communism is like is like fascist. So I think Jack Graham wrote something nice about the comic, and he said like it's like all these colored moping guys, like they LARP as communists. They aren't communists, but they are like the accelerated version of this of these other guys who think we can have abundance for all. But they really, I think there are many bad actors
The
actually
this is
between
really,
them
yeah,
who want to sabotage like left
right.
wing movement.
That's what Charlotte and I were talking about also in our preparation. This question like who is or as Sam Cedar from the Majority Report sometimes say, if Alex Jones wouldn't exist, the CIA would create him
Invented.
uh, to distract people basically. And yeah, and the question is of course interesting: who is a bad actor, who is confused, and who is just a grifter? The outcome of course is the same. The confusion
Yes.
is increasing, and normal people or young people or people of whatever age who don't who seek guidance, they're in this madness. You mentioned Lyndon LaRouche, and I'm not going to put you on the spot again to tell us who Lyndon LaRouche is. He was crazy. He was he came from the left, went to the right, and this is a cult, and people should look him up. He was also new to me. You write about him in the book. Lyndon LaRouche is an important figure. He's no longer with us. He was never really with me.
But
Uh,
his
but
movement
his movement
is.
exactly, and it's fascinating if you look a little bit into it. Check out Celine's book and check Wikipedia. This guy is absolutely insane. I mean, was.
Yes, and I think like
Has a
these
German
these
widow, but
guy
that's another
who,
aspect.
yes, who lives kind of around the corner, and you can feel it where I am from.
Oh my
But
God, you better not disclose your location.
no, and yeah, but I think these guys are actually like the ones in the book. They are like very much definitely linked to this LaRouche movement, and I think they are bad actors. And there's also like they're also linked to like Russia and weird stuff. But but I think it's
Wait a minute,
also
Celine. Are you saying that Nancy Pelosi is correct that people who are okay, I'm throwing in the baby out with the bathwater. I'm just joking. I know that you're not saying that when you mention Russia, because people are having
now.
what enraged me so much, and I gotta just say this, and we're both very much aligned with concern about genocide in Gaza and our country, or the country that issues our passports, Celine and mine, and also American friends. Uh, Most of my friends are really concerned about Gaza. I just want to throw this in there. And Nancy Pelosi said that people who protest for Gaza, or she implied it, are paid by Russia. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm completely derailing the conversation. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Um, I think I was with the La Rouge, with the MAGA communists. I think the problem with that is that a lot of people have the right intentions maybe,
Yes.
and they want to learn about socialism, and then there are these guys who make these podcasts, and it feels also right to be angry today, and they have a knack for instrumentalizing anger and outrage, and getting people to believe them, but it's all like just a facade, and that people who don't read much,
Yep.
I think, have not a very good chance of knowing that. And if you, again, also like with the effective altruism movement, if you're in there and you feel like you can put down other people and maybe do that together with them online and laugh about others or feel great like attacking others, then it's really hard to get out of there. Like,
A term came to my mind as you're talking, and the term is as you're describing, or we're trying to figure out, like some of these people who uh, are kind of confused or bad actors. And Stranger was saying something in the comments. Maybe you can repost it, but I
mm,
just read that you said that this was some people getting fed up with the culture wars. What I hear in this stuff is nihilism. I
oh,
hear,
yes.
and Celine is spot on with, life is confusing. The world is collapsing. I recommend, of course, Mark Fisher's Capitalist Realism from 2009 as a small book, 90 pages, and he nails it. And it's gotten worse since then. And I don't blame.
Sorry.
Oh, there's a doggy. I don't blame
So,
people when they when the only way out or the only way to cope with this madness is basically a form of nihilism. Call it trolling, uh, whatever it is. Um, I'm going to, yeah, somebody wants to say
I,
something?
I do. I just, because we're talking a lot about the issue, but I know from talking to a lot of people, it's very hard to break down some of these myths. That's how the book is kind of organized,
Yeah.
is the myths about degrowth. And I'm I know writing a book like you have is helpful. It has cleared some of the myths for me. Um, but if I'm just talking, like I have stopped being on social media because I don't think I change anyone's mind.
Yeah.
How do we approach this? I don't always like the idea of educating people, but how do we talk about it in a way that brings us more to a solution than some of these well financed campaigns of myth?
And again, we're talking about the solution to the climate crisis and a form of climate justice through
Yes.
through those tactics, through those strategies of degrowth. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
yes, it's really hard, and I think
Reading Celine's comic. and giving it to other people, friends, sharing
I
it.
think I think it's really important to, or that's why I did it, because I know about like these high financed propaganda campaigns, basically, which are even getting into our education in schools and everywhere. And so we have to put something against that and make it available as freely as possible. But of course, that's just like a little bit against all the power they have. But I think it's a start. And the hardest part is, of course, like talking to actual people. And I think that's been very frustrating during the last years. And for me personally, it was really difficult, like COVID and having, like, being unable to talk to some people because they fall into conspiracy theories, or it's like the, how they call it, the polarization, which is also fed in the media. And that's really the hardest part, like to not to not give up and still be open and try to find your place where you can actually do that. It's probably not, or for me, it's not with the people sometimes I care most about, because it drives me crazy not to be able to help, or sometimes make them snap out of it, or, like, I'm also not so good at talking, but I think everybody has some part in their lives where they can try to communicate and try to reach people. It's like you have to take care of yourself so you can actually do that job. And for me, it's making material for education and and trying to keep on talking. But it's hard, yes.
Putting the work out, and not giving up, Celine. I mean, I think people hear you. It is very easy to get cynical, to stop talking to people when you have any number of conversations and they veer into conspiracy theory right away. And I mean, you opened my eyes about certain actors that I wasn't even aware of. And then I don't know what you make of it. I want to. We have to actually wrap the show. We only have a few minutes left. This gallery will stay open. Dex is sitting in the other room. Um, he's looking at drawings of Bill Gates. I guess he loves him so much. No, but this work is so incredibly inspiring, Celine. It's amazing. I'm going to end with a few slides here. This one is a disability activist, Harriet McBride Johnson. She passed away 2008. This is towards the end of the book. I really like it. She pushed back against this guy, Peter Singer, that we mentioned earlier, this Australian philosopher who feels that if a human being, I'm paraphrasing his work, his great work of justifying the loss of life and killing of people when they don't have any
This is
value.
actually like this page links to an article that I recommend everybody should read. This it's from a couple years ago when she was still alive, and she writes about how she met Peter Singer, the guy who actually wants her dead. And oh, he doesn't want her dead. You will read about that if you read the article. I think I put a link where it's archived so you can still read it from that time. But it's incredible, that article, to read how she talks to him and what she feels about that.
I'm going to put this in the local chat. I sent it to you, Shala. Put it in the local chat. It's called Unspeakable Conversations from
Exactly, yes.
2003, New York Times. And this is a rare opportunity where someone, if you will, meets has the opportunity to speak directly to the person who wants to exterminate
People
her
like
or
her,
or
yes.
people like her. Exactly. Really, really important. Um, I want to end on a positive note with Ursula K. Le Guin, and of course, she happens to be a science fiction writer, Celine, and Celine.
Yes, and
Uh,
I
Celine
love
hates science fiction.
Oh,
Let's
no,
tweet it out.
no,
Let's tweet that. Celine Keller
no,
is a plant. She hates sci-fi. No, of course no.
no.
And she says we live in capitalism. Its power seems inescapable, but then so did the divine right of kings. Any human power can be resisted and changed by human beings. Resistance and change often begin in art. Very often in our art, the art of words or drawing, Celine. And yeah, and I guess if you haven't realized it yet, here in our audience on YouTube or here in world, um, all this stuff has to do with capitalism. I'm sorry. I'm kind of a
It has,
I'm an
yes.
essentialist. I mean, I'm an intersectionalist, but I'm also kind of an essentialist, I guess.
Yes, it's capitalism is a problem, yes. It's the problem, really.
And this is your drawing of Cory Doctorow. Proudly call him fan of the show. He was our guest many times. And Corey, you quote Corey as saying, changing the future is a lot more ambitious than predicting the future. So I like to think of where we're at right now in terms of our multiple looming wicked crises, climate, economics, war, and so on, as being like prisoners on a bus. And that bus is barreling toward the edge of a cliff. And the thing that is dystopian about that bus is not that it's barreling toward the edge of a cliff, because the human condition since time has been barreling towards the edge of a cliff, and whatever kind of vehicle we could conceive of, whether that was a chariot or a bus. The thing that's dystopian is there's a bunch of people who are like, we can't turn the wheel, right? So the bus is driven, in other words, by Bill Gates, Elon Musk, and Mark Zuckerberg with his headset on. And Corey basically suggests in the next panel that what we need to do, we need to grab the freaking wheel and take the chance. But having these people drive the bus is no good, and we might get bruises, but we need to grab that wheel.
No, we definitely do.
Yeah, Celine, thank you very much for coming. It was
Thank you.
absolutely amazing to have you here. This work is amazing.
I'm really
I have one critique.
okay.
Nicolas Sarkozy looks like Jordan Peterson. A little bit. A
Oh
little
well,
bit.
I think I have a lot of people who don't quite look like themselves, but I hope like the name tags help.
No, I'm just so obsessed. I hate Jordan Peterson so much. So when I was turning the page and I saw Nicolas Sarkozy, I was like, "Oh my God, Jordan Peterson is in there." And then, oh no! And then later, of course, he has lobster hands, so that's a nice touch. Absolutely brilliant. I'm gonna run through the credits real quick. This was wonderful. Need to be on time today. Book club is almost every Wednesday again. We started in April 8th, 2020. Unbelievable. The show is produced by yours truly. The avatars are by Arieto Chiori, research by Shaila. Also, Arieto built this whole gallery here. The contact is SL
Thank you.
Book Club. Oh, Celine, and oh, I'm talking over you. I should have let you the last word. Any last words? You already said so many wonderful last words, but say more. Do you have
I
any
just
last
want to
words?
say thank you for everything, for having me, and to all of you for being here. And yeah, this was great. I really liked being here.
And you don't lump us in with with the Zuckerberg who hijacked the term metaverse, which really pissed all of us off.
No, that was really, actually, that was really, really exciting for me when you contacted me because I usually read about all these things, but I'm not really part of it. So I told you I never been to Second Life. And when you brought me here the first time, I was like, oh my God, that's like better than the metaverse promo he had, and it's so
Yep.
much older.
I
So,
absolutely. I woke up one time and my colleague from Linden Lab, she's in Florida, she sent me a message, said, you know what, Second Life is trending on Twitter. That was two, three, I don't forget, it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And I was like, really? Why? And and he came up with this promo, and people were like, oh my God, that stuff looks like hell. Second Life looks better. And I was like, whoa.
yes.
Um, but also, I mean, obviously, the difference is that Zuckerberg's, I'm stating the obvious here. Zuckerberg's projects are to satisfy a very small group of investors, and the Second
Yeah.
Life business model is essentially a server rental business. It's like a website rental business, and there is no incentive guided by an algorithm to collect data and then monetize this data for investors. So there is a business model of a tech platform really of course influences the way people use it. I mean that should go without saying, but there I said it. um we have next week we have a free for all, and we'll have you back, Celine. We'll have you back. Can we have you back? Am I talking too much, Celine? I talk.
No,
No.
sure. I would love that. I would love that.
Next time I have Shyla moderate the program so I don't talk too much.
It was really, really good. I like talking to you and listening to you too.
And people should go through this gallery, like Dex already checked out the gallery. This is just a very small selection that Celine made. The book is 170 pages, 160, and then there's all really
Yes,
detailed,
there's
right, all the detailed sources and everything. So go get that download. You can click on any of the book props down in the bottom, and it sends you to Celine's website. So
Oh, and
yeah,
when you go because I didn't put the free link yet on the website. If you go on the website, then you go click the Who is Afraid of Degrowth, and there is a link to the crowdfunding campaign, and you
amazing.
just go there under news. There is a button with news, and there I have shared the link to download for free the PDF.
Awesome. I'll put it in the group as well. I hear Shyla has it too. Now, where was I? Oh yeah, we gotta wrap it. Um, Free for all next week. February is Black History Month. I know Jessica wanted to read. I don't know if Jessica's still here. Jessica may read something from her new book, but I also want to actually read for Black History Month. I want to read from Octavia Butler, Parable of the Sower, which is also referenced in Celine's degrowth book. Although, as we now learned about Celine, she hates science fiction.
Which is not true. You know, the special kind of
Celine,
science fiction.
I'm a very benevolent troll. I don't mean bad. When I glom on to a dad joke, I'm gonna repeat it over and over. I apologize. But next week we're gonna read Octavia Butler Parable of the Sower. Also probably a book that Elon Musk read. It goes like, yeah, that's awesome. Poor people shooting at each other, man, that's awesome. As long as I'm in my fucking spaceship. Okay. Um, Goodbye, everybody, and see you all next next week. Bye
Great.
bye.